Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked into the Great Hall of the Galactic Prosperity Council for the last time. Her steps echoed on the crystal floor as hundreds of alien eyes watched her. Some looked curious. Others looked annoyed. A few seemed happy. Elena had served Earth for 15 years in this place. She had argued for human rights, defended human actions, and tried to make friends with species that saw her people as dangerous children. Today, she would do none of that. The council chamber was beautiful. Light from 3 suns poured through walls made of living diamond. 12 species had seats here, each more advanced than humanity. The Zephyrians floated in their gas clouds, their thoughts shared through electrical fields. The ethereal collective glowed with inner light, claiming to have moved beyond physical needs. The Silicon Confederation processed data faster than any biological brain could think. Elena took her place at the human podium. It was smaller than the others, and placed slightly behind the main circle. Humanity had always been the junior member here, tolerated, but never truly welcomed. Council Prime Zareth called the session to order. His crystalline form rang like a bell when he moved. The human representative has requested time to speak. The floor is yours, Ambassador. Elena placed a simple datapad on her podium. No fancy holographic displays. No emotional appeals. Just words. Honored members of the council, she began. Her voice was steady and calm. I come before you today to deliver a message from the United Earth government. After careful consideration, humanity chooses to withdraw from the Galactic Prosperity Council, effective immediately. The chamber erupted. Not in anger or surprise, but in barely controlled relief. Elena could see it in their alien faces and energy patterns. The Zephyrians' electrical fields brightened. The ethereal collective's glow became warmer. Even the normally emotionless Silicon representatives seemed to process this news with something like satisfaction. Elena continued as if nothing had happened. Our withdrawal is complete and final. All human diplomatic staff will leave council space within 30 standard days. Our trade agreements will be honored until their natural expiration dates. Our research sharing programs will be concluded within 60 days. Counselor Veth Prime of the Zephyrians leaned forward in his containment field. Ambassador, surely there is room for negotiation. Perhaps humanity needs time to reconsider this. Sudden decision. Elena almost smiled. Sudden? They had been planning this for 3 years. There is nothing to reconsider. Counselor, this decision represents the unified will of humanity. Not. But why? Asked Lumina 7 of the ethereal collective. Her voice sounded like music, but Elena could hear the hope in it. What has driven humanity to this choice? Elena had prepared for this question. She had rehearsed dozens of diplomatic answers. She could talk about feeling unwelcome, about being constantly questioned, about having their culture misunderstood. All of it would be true. But she chose simplicity. We believe it is best for everyone involved. The Silicon Confederation's representative, Thex9, processed this for exactly 0.3 seconds. Your departure will require administrative adjustments. Several positions currently held by humans will need reassignment. We understand, Elena said. All transition documents have been prepared and will be transferred to your systems today. What she didn't say was how many positions that actually meant. Humans staffed the monitoring stations in the dangerous border systems. They maintained the early warning networks that watched for emerging threats. They volunteered for the exploration missions that other species found too risky. They ran the unglamorous but essential services that kept the council functioning. The other species saw these jobs as proof of human limitations. Only primitive species would volunteer for dangerous work. Advanced civilizations had moved beyond such crude necessities. Council Prime, Zareth rang again. Are there any formal grievances humanity wishes to present? Any final requests? Elena shook her head. None. We leave in peace and wish the council continued prosperity. The formal vote took less than 10 minutes. 12 species voted to accept humanity's withdrawal. The margin was unanimous. Elena packed her datapad and prepared to leave. As she walked toward the exit, she felt the weight of history. Humanity had joined this council 57 years ago, full of hope and excitement. They had expected to find teachers, mentors, friends among the stars. Instead, they found a galaxy that had grown comfortable and safe, but perhaps too comfortable. In the months that followed, human installations across council space began shutting down. Trade posts closed their doors and shipped their goods back to human space. Research stations transmitted their final data and went dark. The small but effective human fleet simply vanished one day, leaving no trace of where it had gone. The council members barely noticed. They were too busy celebrating. The Zephyrians held festivals of harmony. The ethereal collective meditated on the improved spiritual balance of the galaxy. The Silicon Confederation calculated the increased efficiency of council operations without human unpredictability. Only a few beings paid attention to the details. Admiral Kess of the Council Defense Force noted that early warning systems were going offline. Trade Minister Uloth observed that certain dangerous but profitable mining operations were shutting down. Research Director Plame saw that exploration of hazardous systems had stopped completely. But these seemed like small problems. The galaxy was peaceful. Pirates were few and weak. No major threats had emerged in decades. Surely the Council's advanced civilizations could handle whatever minor issues arose. Elena's final report to Earth was simple. Mission complete. The galaxy thinks it no longer needs us. Time will tell if they're right. Mission complete. Mission complete. Mission complete. 6 galactic standard years had passed since humanity left the Council. The galaxy had never been more peaceful, or so the official reports claimed. Council meetings had become shorter and more pleasant. No more arguments about human military buildup. No more complaints about human exploration teams taking unnecessary risks. No more debates about including primitive species in council decisions. Prime Counselor Zareth reviewed the latest statistics with satisfaction. Crime rates were at historic lows. No major conflicts had occurred between member species. Economic growth was steady across all council worlds. The removal of humanity's chaotic influence had clearly benefited galactic civilization. But on the edges of council space, things were changing. Captain Zala of the merchant vessel Times Prosperity's Dream Times was the first to notice. She had been running trade routes between Zephyrian space and the outer mining colonies for 20 years. The routes had always been safe, protected by early warning systems and rapid response teams. Control, this is Times Prosperity's Dream asterisk. She broadcast on the emergency channel. I'm detecting 3 unidentified ships following me through the Keller system. They're not responding to identification requests. The response took longer than usual. Copy. Asterisk. Prosperity's Dream. Asterisk. Stand by while we contact the monitoring station. 20 minutes passed. Then 40. Finally, Control responded. Asterisk. Prosperity's Dream asterisk. The Keller monitoring station appears to be offline. We're trying to reach the backup facility. The backup facility was also offline. So was the one after that. Zala realized with growing fear that all the monitoring stations on this route had gone dark months ago, and nobody had noticed. The 3 ships caught up with her near the asteroid belt. They were crude, ugly vessels that looked like they had been built from scrap metal. But their weapons worked perfectly. Zala's cargo of rare minerals was worth more than her ship. She made the smart choice and surrendered. Similar attacks began happening across the outer systems. The Korthak Syndicate, once a small group of pirates that human patrols had kept in check, was growing bold. Their ships appeared in systems that hadn't seen crime in decades. Council worlds that had never needed serious defenses suddenly found themselves under attack. The Council's response was slow and confused. Their military forces hadn't fought a real battle in over 30 years. Their ships were beautiful works of art, designed more for ceremonies than combat. Their crews trained in parade formations and diplomatic escorts, not warfare. Admiral Kess stood before the Council's emergency session and tried to explain the situation. The outer systems are experiencing increased pirate activity. Our current forces are adjusting to meet this challenge. Surely this is temporary, said Counselor Veth Prime. His electrical field flickered with annoyance. Pirates are cowards. A show of force should scatter them. Admiral Kess had tried shows of force. His beautiful fleet had flown majestically through 3 systems, displaying their power to empty space. The pirates simply attacked different systems while the fleet was away. When his ships actually encountered pirates, the results were embarrassing. Crews trained in ceremony struggled with actual combat. Weapons designed for appearance worked poorly against real targets. The pirates have new ships, Admiral Kess reported. Better weapons, improved tactics. They seem to know our patrol routes and response times. This was true, but he didn't understand why. The monitoring networks that had tracked pirate movements were gone. The early warning systems that detected new threats were offline. The intelligence networks that tracked criminal organizations had been dismantled when their human operators left. Meanwhile, other problems were growing. The mining operations in the hazard zone had shut down completely. These systems produced rare materials essential for Council technology, but they were dangerous. Radiation storms, unstable gravity fields, and hostile environments made them deadly for most species. Humans had operated these mines for decades, using their stubborn refusal to give up as an advantage in impossible conditions. Trade Minister Yuloth studied the economic reports with growing worry. Rare mineral prices have increased by 300%. Several critical materials are becoming impossible to obtain. Then we must find alternatives, declared Lumina 7 of the Ethereal Collective. Surely our advanced sciences can create substitutes. They tried. Scientists from 12 species worked on the problem. But some things couldn't be replaced. The quantum processors that ran Council computers needed specific crystals that only formed in high radiation environments. The energy systems that powered their cities required materials forged in the hearts of dying stars. These things could only be gathered by beings crazy enough to venture into places where sensible people wouldn't go. Humans had been those crazy beings. Exploration also stopped. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but it was also full of dangers. Unknown systems might contain hostile species, deadly phenomena, or worse. For years, human exploration teams had pushed into the dark, mapping new territories and identifying threats before they could become problems. Research Director Plame noticed when the flow of new discoveries stopped. We've received no new system surveys in 18 months. No reports of emerging civilizations. No data on potential hazards. Perhaps we have explored enough, suggested Thex 9 of the Silicon Confederation. The known galaxy contains sufficient resources and knowledge, but the unknown galaxy was still full of things that might threaten the known galaxy. Hostile species were still out there, growing and preparing. Dangerous phenomena were still developing in the dark between stars. Without scouts and early warnings, the Council was flying blind through a dangerous universe. The problems were small at first. A trade route here, a mining operation there. The major threats that had once worried the Council remained contained. The hive mind of Xerion stayed locked in their home system. The Void Hunters remained dormant, in the dark spaces between galaxies. The Warforged clans continued their eternal battles, far from civilized space. What the Council didn't realize was that these threats had been contained by networks of monitoring stations, rapid response teams, and early warning systems that humans had quietly maintained. Like a immune system, these defenses worked invisibly until they were gone. Counselor Veth Prime stood before a display showing the latest crime statistics. The numbers were still low by historical standards, but they were rising. This is concerning, but manageable. We simply need to adapt our strategies. Admiral Kess nodded, though privately he wondered what strategies would work. His forces were designed for a peaceful galaxy. They had no experience with real threats, no knowledge of dirty fighting, no willingness to take the risks that victory sometimes required. They were advanced, civilized, and completely unprepared for a universe that didn't care about their moral superiority. The galaxy was still peaceful, but the peace was becoming fragile. And in the dark spaces between the stars, things that had been sleeping were beginning to wake up. The emergency alarms in the council chamber had not sounded in 43 years. When they began screaming at 0300 Galactic Standard Time, most council members didn't recognize what they were hearing. Prime Counselor Zareth was pulled from his meditation cycle by his personal aide. "Sir, we have a priority alpha emergency. The Zirion system. The hive mind has broken containment." Zareth's crystalline form rang with shock. "That's impossible. The Zirion containment grid has held for 2 centuries. Sir, 3 council worlds are under attack. The hive mind fleet numbers in the thousands." Within hours, the council's emergency session convened. The great chamber filled with panicked representatives as the reports came in. The holographic displays showed the unthinkable. Massive hive mind ships, spreading like a disease through council space. Admiral Kess stood at the command podium, his face pale. "The situation is critical. The hive mind launched coordinated strikes against Velkan Prime, New Zephyria, and the ethereal homeworld of Luminos. Our defense fleets are responding, but..." He paused, and everyone could see the defeat in his eyes. "Our fleets are taking heavy losses. The enemy ships are unlike anything in our databases. They appear to have been developing new technology for decades." Counselor Veth Prime's electrical field crackled with fear. "How is this possible? The containment grid was monitored constantly. We had early warning systems throughout the Zirion system. The monitoring stations went offline 8 months ago," Admiral Kess admitted. "We assumed it was a technical failure. Repair crews were scheduled. But we had difficulty finding personnel willing to work in that dangerous environment. The truth was worse than that. The Zirion containment grid had been a masterpiece of engineering, but it required constant maintenance. The monitoring stations that watched for hive mind activity needed regular updates. The rapid response teams that could reinforce weak points needed to be on constant alert. Humans had volunteered for all of these jobs. They had worked in the radiation-soaked space around Zirion, repairing sensors and updating equipment. They had staffed the boring but crucial monitoring stations that watched for any sign of hive mind expansion. They had maintained the early warning networks that could detect military buildup. When humans left, the Council assumed other species would take over these responsibilities. But the Zephyrians found the radiation harmful to their electrical fields. The ethereal collective claimed the hive mind's mental emanations disturbed their spiritual balance. The Silicon Confederation calculated that the risk-to-reward ratio was unacceptable. For 8 months, the Zirion system had been unwatched. The hive mind had used that time well. The first battle reports were devastating. The Council fleet, Times Harmony's Light Asterisk, pride of the ethereal collective, had been destroyed with all hands. Its beautiful crystal hull, designed to channel peaceful energy, shattered under the first enemy weapons fire. The crew, trained in meditation and harmony, had no idea how to fight an enemy that wanted only to consume and expand. Captain Mora of the Times, Zephyrian Wind Times, sent his final transmission as his ship died. "They're not like us. They don't negotiate. They don't retreat. They just keep coming. Our weapons barely scratch them, but theirs cut through us like we're made of paper." The hive mind had spent 2 centuries studying Council military tactics through their monitoring networks. They knew exactly how Council ships would respond, what formations they would use, what weaknesses they could exploit. Meanwhile, the Council knew almost nothing about current hive mind capabilities. Research Director Plame pulled up the classified files on the hive mind. Our last intelligence update on their military capacity is 47 years old. We have no data on their current fleet strength, weapon systems, or tactical doctrine. Why haven't we been monitoring them? Demanded Lumina 7. We were, Plame said quietly. The monitoring was handled by human intelligence teams. When they left, we assumed the automated systems would be sufficient. The automated systems had failed within months. Without human technicians to maintain them, they had gradually degraded until they provided no useful information. The Council had been fighting blind against an enemy that had been watching them for decades. More bad news arrived hourly. 3 more Council worlds had fallen to hive mind forces. The defenders had fought bravely, but they were completely outmatched. Their ships were designed for peacekeeping and ceremony, not warfare. Their crews were trained in diplomacy and cultural exchange, not combat tactics. The Silicon Confederation's fleet lasted longer than most, but only because their logical approach to battle was predictable. The hive mind had calculated exactly how Silicon ships would respond to each situation. When the Times Logic's Triumph Times deployed its forces in perfect mathematical formation, hive mind ships were already in position to exploit every weakness. Admiral Kess requested an emergency meeting with the full council. We need to discuss our options. The current situation is not sustainable. The options were limited and grim. The Council's combined fleets were impressive on paper, but they had been designed for a peaceful galaxy. Their weapons were ceremonial. Their shields were decorative. Their crews had never faced an enemy that wanted to kill them. Perhaps we can negotiate, suggested Counselor Veth Prime. The hive mind must want something. Territory, resources, recognition. Sir, Admiral Kess said gently, the hive mind doesn't negotiate. They consume. Everything they encounter becomes part of the hive. That's why they were contained in the first place. The Council had forgotten why the hive mind was dangerous. 2 centuries of peace had made them believe all conflicts could be resolved through discussion and compromise. They had forgotten that some enemies couldn't be reasoned with, only defeated or contained. What about our allies? Asked Lumina 7. Surely other species will come to our aid. What allies? Admiral Kess asked. We've spent decades avoiding contact with military-focused species. We've rejected alliances with anyone we considered too aggressive or primitive. The Council had built their civilization on the idea that violence was obsolete. They had surrounded themselves with like-minded species who shared their values of peace and harmony. They had deliberately excluded anyone who might disturb their enlightened society. Now they faced an enemy that didn't share those values, and they had no one to call for help. Thex 9 of the Silicon Confederation processed the situation with mechanical precision. Our defeat probability is 97.3% based on current projections. The hive mind will control all Council space within 2.7 years at their current expansion rate. There must be something we can do, Zareth said desperately. Admiral Kess looked at the tactical displays showing hive mind ships spreading through their territory. He thought about his beautiful fleets being destroyed by an enemy they couldn't fight. He thought about the monitoring stations that had gone unmaintained, the early warnings that had been ignored, the dangerous work that nobody had wanted to do. Sir, he said slowly, there might be one option, but the Council isn't going to like it. He activated a restricted file that hadn't been opened in 6 years. The display showed the last known location of human space. We could ask for help. The Council's search for humanity began with confidence and ended with terror. Admiral Kess led the expedition personally, commanding the fastest ship in the Council fleet. They had expected to find humans hiding in some remote system, probably struggling to survive without Council support. The plan was simple. Offer them full readmission to the Council in exchange for military assistance against the hive mind. The first human settlement they found changed everything. Sir, reported Commander Yala, staring at her sensor display. I'm reading massive industrial activity in the Kepler 442 system. The energy signatures are enormous. Admiral Kess studied the data. That system was classified as barely habitable. Extreme radiation, unstable star, toxic atmosphere on most worlds. Yes, sir. According to our records, no council species could survive there long term. But humans could. The fleet approached cautiously, expecting to find a small mining outpost or research station. Instead, they discovered something that defied belief. The system was full of ships. Not the desperate vessels of refugees, but sleek, powerful warships that dwarfed anything in the Council fleet. Orbital stations surrounded every world, connected by streams of transport ships carrying resources and personnel. The toxic worlds had been transformed into thriving industrial centers. How many ships are we looking at? Admiral Kess asked. Over 3,000 in this system alone, sir. And these are just the ones we can detect. I'm reading stealth signatures that suggest many more. The humans responded to their approach with professional courtesy. A woman's voice came over the communication system, speaking perfect, galactic standard. Council Vessel Times Diplomatic Unity *. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. State your business in human space. Admiral Kess felt a chill. Terran Defense Force? 12 years ago, humans had barely managed to field a few hundred ships. Admiral Chen, I am Admiral Kess of the Galactic Prosperity Council. We come seeking diplomatic contact with human leadership. Interesting timing. Admiral Chen replied. Please follow the designated flight path to Station Alpha. Any deviation will be considered hostile. The flight path led them through the heart of the human industrial complex. Admiral Kess watched through the viewports as they passed construction yards, building ships he didn't recognize. The technology looked familiar but advanced, as if humans had taken Council designs and improved them in ways the Council had never considered. Sir, Commander Yala said quietly, I'm detecting weapons signatures on those ships. The power readings are significant. Station Alpha was a massive structure built into an asteroid. It bristled with defensive systems and docking ports filled with warships. As they approached, Admiral Kess realized this wasn't just a settlement. It was a military base. Admiral Chen met them in person at the airlock. She was younger than Admiral Kess had expected, probably born after humanity left the Council. Her uniform was practical and military, nothing like the ceremonial dress Council officers wore. Her eyes held a confidence that made Admiral Kess uncomfortable. Welcome to the outer reaches, Admiral, she said. I assume this visit is related to your current problems with the hive mind. Admiral Kess tried to hide his surprise. You know about the hive mind attacks? We know about everything that happens in the galaxy, Admiral. It's called intelligence gathering. You should try it sometime. She led them through the station. The corridors were efficient and functional, designed by people who understood that form followed function. Council stations were works of art. Human stations were tools for survival. How did you know we were coming? Admiral Kess asked. We've been monitoring Council space since we left. We knew the hive mind would break containment eventually. The only question was, when? Admiral Chen brought them to a briefing room where other human officers waited. The walls were covered with tactical displays showing the entire galaxy. Red zones marked hive mind advances. Blue zones showed Council territory. Green zones showed something Admiral Kess hadn't expected. Extensive human settlements and allied territories. My God, Commander Yala whispered. How far have you spread? 47 systems and growing, replied Colonel Martinez, a tough-looking man with scars on his hands. We've made contact with 63 species that the Council either ignored or rejected. Turns out there are a lot of people in this galaxy who don't fit the Council's idea of civilized. Admiral Chen activated a star map. The Krell war clans, rejected by the Council for being too aggressive. The nomad fleets, ignored because they don't settle on planets. The Stonesinger Collective, dismissed as primitive because they use biological technology. The Ghost Runners, avoided because they live in dangerous space. Each species appeared on the map in green. Admiral Kess felt sick as he realized the scope of what he was seeing. "You've formed an alliance." "The Outcasts Coalition," Admiral Chen confirmed. "Funny thing about outcasts, they're usually outcasts for being too tough to fit in civilized society. Makes them excellent allies when civilization needs defending." Colonel Martinez pulled up tactical data. "The Krell have been itching for a real fight for decades. The Ghost Runners know every dangerous route through the galaxy. The Stone Singers have biological weapons the hive mind can't adapt to. The Nomads have mobile tactics no stationary enemy can counter. We've been preparing for this war for 12 years, Admiral Chen added. Every species the Council rejected, we recruited. Every dangerous technology the Council banned, we developed. Every military strategy the Council considered too aggressive, we perfected." Admiral Kess looked at the displays, showing human military might, and felt a growing dread. Why? Why prepare for war? The galaxy was peaceful. And the galaxy was quiet, Admiral Chen corrected. "There's a difference. Peace requires strength to maintain it. Quiet just means the threats haven't arrived yet." She activated another display showing intelligence reports. "The hive mind has been planning this expansion for decades. The Void Hunters have been gathering strength in dark space. The Warforged clans have been building new weapons. The galaxy has never been peaceful, Admiral. You just stopped paying attention to the dangerous parts." Commander Yala studied the tactical projections. "With your forces and allies, you could stop the hive mind." "Yes," Admiral Chen agreed. "We could." Admiral Kess felt hope for the first time in weeks. "Then you'll help us? You'll come to the Council's aid?" Admiral Chen's expression didn't change. "That depends, Admiral. What are you offering?" "Full readmission to the Council. Restored trade agreements. Complete diplomatic recognition. The same deal you gave us before? Junior membership with limited rights and constant supervision?" Admiral Kess realized his mistake. These weren't the desperate refugees he had expected to find. These were people who had built something better than what they had lost. They didn't need the Council anymore. "What do you want?" he asked quietly. Admiral Chen stood and walked to the main display. It showed the galaxy in real time, with hive mind forces advancing through Council space. "We want to save as many people as possible, Admiral. But we're not going to save a system that creates the conditions for disasters like this." She turned to face him directly. "The Council will surrender unconditionally to human authority. All military forces will be placed under our command. All governmental systems will be restructured according to our specifications. The species that survive will join the coalition as equal members." "That's conquest," Admiral Kess said. "That's evolution," Admiral Chen replied. "The galaxy tried your way for 2 centuries. It led to complacency, weakness, and the near extinction of civilized space. Now we try our way." She gestured to the tactical displays. "We've already begun evacuating non-combatants from the war zones. Refugee fleets are being escorted to safe territories. When the Council falls, and it will fall, we'll make sure there's something left to rebuild." "Oh." Admiral Kess stared at the displays, showing human ships already moving through Council space, not as conquerors, but as protectors. They weren't waiting for Council permission or approval. They were doing what needed to be done. "You planned this," he realized. "All of it. You knew the Council would fail." "We hoped we were wrong," Admiral Chen said. "But we prepared for what we expected. The question now is whether the Council accepts our help on our terms, or faces the hive mind alone." Admiral Kess looked at the advancing red markers showing hive mind expansion. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. The final session of the Galactic Prosperity Council was held aboard the human dreadnought Times. Endurance Times. As 3 Council homeworlds burned in the viewports below. The once magnificent Council chamber had been reduced to a simple briefing room with basic chairs and functional lighting. There were no crystal formations, no artistic displays, no symbols of advanced civilization. Just 12 species facing the end of everything they had built. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the head of the table where Prime Counselor Zareth had once presided. Behind her, tactical displays showed the real-time situation across the galaxy. Red zones marked territories lost to the hive mind. Blue zones showed the few remaining Council strongholds. Green zones showed the expanding coalition forces that were fighting to contain the disaster. The situation is straightforward, Admiral Chen began. Her voice was calm and professional, but every being in the room could hear the authority behind it. The hive mind controls 60% of former Council space. Your remaining fleets have been eliminated or scattered. Your governments are in collapse. She activated a display showing evacuation statistics. Coalition forces have successfully evacuated 4.7 billion civilians from the war zones. Refugee camps are being established in safe territories beyond hive mind reach. Medical aid and basic supplies are being distributed according to need, not species preference. Counselor Veth Prime's electrical field flickered weakly. His homeworld had fallen 3 days ago. Our people are grateful for your assistance, Admiral. But surely, there must be hope for negotiation with the hive mind. Admiral Chen's expression didn't change. The hive mind doesn't negotiate, Counselor. They consume. Every being they encounter becomes part of their collective consciousness. Every world they take becomes a breeding ground for more of their kind. There is no compromise with an enemy that sees you as food. Colonel Martinez, standing beside Admiral Chen, activated another display. Our intelligence indicates the hive mind is preparing to expand beyond Council space. They've been studying galactic navigation data from captured Council worlds. Within 6 months, they'll begin probing other regions. Trided roads. Trided roads. The implications were clear. This wasn't just about the Council anymore. The hive mind had broken free and would keep expanding until something stopped them. Lumina 7 of the Ethereal Collective spoke next. Her usual musical voice was flat with defeat. What are your terms, Admiral? Complete surrender of all governmental authority to the Coalition Emergency Command. All military assets to be integrated into Coalition forces. All scientific and technological resources to be shared freely among Coalition members. All territorial claims to be subject to Coalition approval. The terms were harsh but not vindictive. Admiral Chen continued. In return, the Coalition will guarantee protection for all surrendering populations, equal representation in the new galactic government, and full citizenship rights for all species willing to contribute to collective defense. Thex 9 of the Silicon Confederation processed this for several seconds. You are demanding the complete restructure of galactic civilization. I'm demanding the creation of a galactic civilization that can actually survive, Admiral Chen replied. Your old system was beautiful, peaceful, and completely inadequate for a dangerous universe. It produced 2 centuries of stagnation that left you helpless when real threats emerged. She gestured to the tactical displays showing the war. The Coalition fleet is currently engaging hive mind forces across 17 systems. We're not just fighting to save Council worlds, we're fighting to prevent the hive mind from expanding into the entire galaxy. This is what actual defense looks like. Research Director Plame spoke quietly. How do we know you won't simply become new oppressors? Admiral Chen considered this seriously. You don't. But consider the alternatives. The hive mind offers absorption into a collective consciousness that erases individual identity. The Council system offers slow decline and eventual conquest by whatever threat emerges next. The Coalition offers survival through strength, with equal representation for all members. She activated a new display showing Coalition government structure. Every species gets representation proportional to their contribution to collective defense. Military service, resource production, research development, territorial security. all count equally. Species that contribute more get more say in decisions. Species that refuse to contribute get protection, but limited political power. It was radically different from the council system, which had given each species equal representation regardless of their contribution. The new system rewarded responsibility and punished free riding. The Krell war clans have become our military specialists, Admiral Chen explained. The Stone Singer Collective handles biological research and medical support. The Ghost Runners manage intelligence and reconnaissance. The Nomad fleets provide rapid response and mobile tactics. Humanity coordinates overall strategy and maintains the technological infrastructure. Admiral Kess, who had been silent throughout the meeting, finally spoke. And if we refuse? And, finally? Then you face the hive mind alone, with whatever forces you have left. Colonel Martinez answered. We'll continue evacuating civilians, but we won't waste coalition resources defending governments that won't adapt to reality. The choice was no choice at all. The council members looked at each other, seeing the defeat in alien eyes that had once held such confidence in their enlightened civilization. Prime Counselor Zareth's crystalline form dimmed as he spoke the words that ended 2 centuries of galactic history. The Galactic Prosperity Council hereby surrenders all authority to the Coalition Emergency Command. The surrender was formalized quickly. Coalition legal specialists had prepared all the necessary documents during the 3-day journey to this meeting. Within hours, the transition was complete. Admiral Chen assigned coalition liaisons to each former council species to help with integration. Medical teams continued evacuation efforts, while military units pressed their offensive against the hive mind. The war was far from over, but now it was being fought by people who understood what was at stake. 3 months later, Admiral Chen stood on the observation deck of Time's Endurance Asterisk, watching construction crews build the first coalition military base in former council space. The hive mind had been pushed back to their original territory, contained once again by forces that understood the necessity of constant vigilance. Colonel Martinez joined her at the viewport. The former council species are adapting better than expected. The Zephyrians have volunteered for communications duty. The Ethereal Collective is working on energy system improvements. Even the Silicon Confederation is contributing processing power for tactical calculations. They're learning, Admiral Chen agreed. Crisis teaches lessons that peace never could. Any regrets about how it ended? Martinez asked. Admiral Chen thought about the beautiful council chamber with its artistic displays and ceremonial grandeur. She thought about the species that had believed civilization meant moving beyond the need for strength, only to discover that strength was what made civilization possible. The galaxy tried to grow up too fast, she said finally. They wanted to skip the hard parts of survival and go straight to enlightenment. But you can't build lasting peace without being ready for war. You can't maintain safety without accepting danger. They had to learn that the universe doesn't care about your moral superiority. She turned away from the viewport and headed back to the command center. There was still work to do. The Void Hunters were stirring in deep space. The Warforged clans were showing unusual activity. Pirates were testing coalition defenses in the outer systems. The galaxy would never again be as quiet as it was during the council years, but it would also never again be as vulnerable. The coalition understood that eternal vigilance was the price of survival, and they were willing to pay it. Behind them, the new base continued to grow, its weapons powered and its sensors scanning the dark spaces between the stars. It was not beautiful, like the old council installations, but it was strong, and in a dangerous universe, strength was its own form of beauty.